Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Do we have any podcasters in the house today? If we do, I've got a big treat for you, because today I want to talk with Francesco Baschieri, and he is the president of Voxnest and the founder of Spreaker. Now, Voxnest recently partnered with DAX to create audio monetization opportunities for publishers, which is something that will be music to the ears of quite a few of you listening, I suspect. This partnership unites technology, sales and listeners all into one solution for podcast production, podcast distribution, measurement and advertising. And the deal also seems to bring together the expertise of two companies and enable current publishers of audio content to grow their audience and grow their revenue. Additionally, the prospect of an all-in-one solution that can facilitate entry into the growing audio market by publishers who have yet to capitalise on the medium's increasing popularity, while also giving brands and advertisers the ability to connect with relevant and engaged audiences at scale, has got to be a great thing. So with literally thousands and thousands of shows and monthly active users, it's got to make Francesco incredibly proud of what he has created, has enabled users all over the world to make their voice heard, quite literally. So I invited him on the show today to find out more about his past, his present and his future, and of course the role of technology in it all too. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Francesco, president of Voxnest and founder of Spreaker. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Francesco. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So hello, Neil. Thanks very much for having me. My name is Francesco Baschieri. I'm currently serve as the president of a company called Voxnest. And Voxnest is a company that creates technological solutions for professional podcasters. As a president of this company, I'm basically making sure that we serve our customers in the best possible way, and we expand the reach of our company in a fast-growing market as it is podcasting today.
And you've been on quite a journey, because you're a serial entrepreneur that since 2010 has been the CEO of Spreaker.com, a platform that you founded for creating, distributing and monetizing podcasts and live radio shows. So I've got to ask, where did your love of podcasting begin, and what put you on this journey right in the heart of podcast landscape?
It's been a weird path. To be honest, I didn't start podcasting, and to this day, I don't have the show. I'm a strong believer that people should do what they're good at doing, and I'm definitely not good at creating content and hosting a show. However, back in 2010, it was a very particular moment in my life, because I had recently sold a company to an Italian marketing agency, and so I was in the process of figuring out what to do next, me and a bunch of partners, and somebody came up with the idea of making something that had something to do with the idea of radio. And I thought that was a terrible idea at the time, really. My first reaction was, this is never going to work. Because I had in my mind the fact that this guy wanted to create something around the concept of music streaming. And I literally thought that back in 2010, the market was already too crowded. But then I figured that I was a heavy consumer at the time of radio because of long driving commutes that I had to do because of work, and I mostly wanted to listen to talk content, and I had started consuming quote-unquote podcast in my car, and the way I did so was I downloaded MP3 files and I burned them into audio CDs so that I could use my car stereo to play that content. And the concept of actually lowering the barrier for content creation and consumption of this type of content was intriguing to me, and that's when we decided to create Spreaker. But the concept was really, let's lower the barrier, let's make it very, very simple for everybody to create any kind of audio program, whether it's live or pre-recorded, whether it's I don't know, 100% talk or mixed format using music or whatever the content creator wants to put into the show, and let's see what happens. And also another thing that I thought was we need to launch this product in the US market, because as of today, it's probably the only market that has the size to create a viable company in a short time. And full disclosure, I was living in Italy and I'm Italian, as you can probably tell by my accent, and I had never been to the US before. So I basically packed, moved to San Francisco, California, started this company, started collecting feedback. We launched the company in beta at the beginning of the year, and I was there trying to pitch the idea to investors and partners. And the sad thing was that I was pitching the concept of podcast. Everybody was so negative about it. This was like 2010, 2011. If you look at Google Trends for the searches that contain the word podcast, you find that the lowest popularity of the word in the period between 2005 and today was actually mid-2010. And that when we launched the company. And everybody told me, oh no, man, podcasts are long dead. They were a thing in 2005, but you're 5 years late. Try and come up with a better idea. And that was what happened at the time. But again, I had started dipping my toes into this market. I became passionate. I actually, for a very short period of time, did a show as a co-host, not as a primary host. And I thought it was fun. And I met so many people with their passion for creating this kind of content. So I was really, really sure that we were onto something, even though the economics might have sounded different at the time. So I kept at it, and it's been a long ride. A lot of things have happened in between 2010 and today. I'm pretty sure you and all your listeners are very familiar with all the history of the medium so far, but it's been a tough ride, really.
And before we move on to Voxnest, I am actually quite conscious that there's going to be a few people listening that are hearing about Spreaker for the very first time. So just to bring them up to speed, I mean, it is the leading platform for creating, distributing, measuring and listening to live on-demand audio podcasts. But I've got to ask you, I mean, with thousands of shows and millions of monthly active users, it must make you feel incredibly proud of what you've created and how your platform has actually given people a platform to make their voice heard, hasn't it?
It's awesome. What really makes me proud are individual stories. It's not the big numbers, the big figures that you quote and makes you feel big. Because the truth is, there's always somebody out there, whether it's Facebook or Google or whoever, who boasts bigger numbers, right? So again, even if today we have north of 100 million plays on our network every month, again, it's not the same effect or the same experience that this could have conveyed 10 years ago. We're just one of many digital platforms. I'm obviously very proud, but that's not what I'm proud of. What I'm proud of is what our users within their individual stories have been able to do, how they've used the medium of audio to create great things. And also some fun stuff that's happened. So I usually like to quote two stories from the very early days. We're talking 2011, 2012 in Spreaker. And by the way, as you mentioned, Spreaker is a platform that we created to enable people to easily create podcasts, share them with the world, and eventually even monetize them. So back in 2011, that was during the Arab Spring, we started noticing that a lot of Arabic language shows started popping up from the country of Libya. And one very interesting story that we found out was that this group of people were actually using phones or very unreliable internet connectivity. So at some point they switched over to the phone network and having somebody relay them onto the internet through our platform. We're basically doing live shows and live broadcasting from the besieged city of Misurata in Libya, while the government forces were actually besieging the city. So these guys were actually doing something that the Radio London or the Allied radios was doing during World War II. And that was really, really emotional for us when we found out what it was about. It took some time, of course, because of language barrier, but it was something great that moved me really deeply, and probably the first time that I really figured out that, okay, we had changed something, even if it's not much, but we have been able to do something and change something in the world. I know it's probably a big thing to say, but that's really how I felt like. So yeah, and the second episode that I usually like to remember is something fun, at least for us. Not sure it was fun for the host, but we literally had a guy who was arrested while doing a live show on our platform. And when I say arrested, I mean he got in a standoff with the SWAT team in his home. So he was surrounded by the SWAT team and had a phone call with the negotiator because he was inside his house and allegedly armed and dangerous. And he live broadcast a standoff. And it was weird because I got a phone call. I was still living in Europe at the time, so there was a time difference. And I got a phone call in the middle of the night from a reporter from a local newspaper who wanted my quote for the story that was developing, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I opened Spreaker and I opened Twitter, and like this thing was massive, like something like 30,000 people listening to this guy, and half of them rooting for him to surrender, and the other half telling him never to give up and never surrender to the system. It was weird. It developed over 5 hours. Eventually, he surrendered and got arrested. Which was also bad because he was a paying user, so he couldn't pay our subscription for a while. But we gave him a free pass because of we trusted that when he got out, eventually he would stay on the platform, and everything developed well. He got out within 6 or 7 months, I guess. So it's probably been a bad story for him, but again, something that happens on a platform that you have developed that has this impact. This media impact made me very, very proud.
What a fantastic story. But of course, here in 2018, you're the president of Voxnest, which provides podcast publishers and advertisers with a complete set of podcast management, monetization and analytics tracking tools. And can you tell me a little bit more about Voxnest and the solutions it provides for podcasters?
Definitely. So basically, we manage a number of different solutions targeted to different segments of the podcasting world. One product is, of course, Spreaker, that we actually kept and are continuing to expand and evolve. Spreaker is a platform that caters to podcasters of all sizes and allows them to create, distribute, measure, and monetize a podcast show. We recently released the enterprise version of Spreaker that's targeted to large publishers, which has additional features like the ability to manage networks, multi-user roles. It integrates with user-accessible ad server and supply-side platform. These terms are, a bit too technical, but basically allow publishers to manage directly their advertising operations. So, for instance, if they have a sales force, they can have people going out and selling a show, and do real-time auctioning of different bids for an advertising space in real time. So that's a Spreaker platform. We also manage a platform called Blog Talk Radio that caters to individuals who want to create live talk radio shows, getting callers within their show as it was real talk radio. We also have a platform called Dynamo. Dynamo is a fairly new product and actually very smart. It allows podcasters to tap into dynamic ad insertion and automatic monetization, no matter what platform their show is hosted on. Kind of like it works like AdSense, but for podcasts. So it's a free product to use. You just sign up to it. You just tell the system where you want ads placed. Within your episode. Do you want pre-rolls, post-rolls? Do you want to insert ads in a specific place within the show? You also tell the system if you have any specific constraint about ad categories that you do not want to be placed in your shows. For instance, if you have a vegan show, you probably don't want to have fast food chains advertising on your show, stuff like this. and we basically do the rest. We match the content and the listener in real time with the highest bidding advertiser, place the ad, give you a real-time dashboard about your listeners and how things are going, and send you the check at the end of the month. So Dynamo is something that we recently launched and we're very proud of.
So if we were to zoom out just for a moment, I believe that Voxnest acquired Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio at the beginning of the year to ultimately create this network of solutions for customers to become the largest podcast monetization platform in the entire market. But can you tell me more about that grand vision that you have for podcasters and what they can achieve with all of these platforms together?
Yes, definitely. So what happened at the beginning of the year is that we were approached by a number of investors some of whom actually had a previous interest in the company that we merged with, named Blog Talk Radio. And after some actually fairly short discussion, we decided that it was a good idea to create a new company with a big critical mass to address this fast-growing market of podcasting. We named the company Voxnest. With the investment that we got into the company, we actually purchased the two previous companies, Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio, and we also started developing relationship with some other players in the industry for whom we develop all the technology stack. And our goal is to create, using this platform, probably the largest audience network marketplace in podcasting today, and give the tools to everybody to do buys and sells within this market. So the game is a critical mass play, and we want to operate at scale to unlock revenue generation in the podcasting world. The truth is that today, only maybe 1 or 2% of podcasts out there are able to monetize, to actually make money from their show directly. We believe there is an opportunity to expand the size of the podcasts we're able to be monetized, whether it's with advertising or subscription, by using technology. The reason why today the interval, the number of shows that can actually generate revenue is so small is because most of the sales operations are heavily manual. So in order for creating return on investment to all the players in the value chain, the minimum size of the show, the threshold, is very, very high. We're trying to lower the bar as well.
One of the big reasons I invited you on the show today was after hearing your latest big announcement of a partnership with DAX, which was created by Global Media and Entertainment Group here in the UK. So can you tell me more about this partnership and how you think it will bring publishers ultimately a turnkey solution for creating, monetizing and distributing digital audio?
At the end of the day, I believe it's very simple. Publishers are in the business of creating content. That's what they can do with their best. And they probably can do this at scale. In order for them to access a new opportunity, digital audio, they need to have technology and they need to have sales. And these are two hurdles that historically have been hard for content creators, even large publishers, to address. We are a very good technology company. We create all the tools for publishers to manage, upload, distribute, and measure the content. However, we don't do sales. Sales are very local and country-specific. But we were already working within our platform with DAX for monetizing our inventory in the UK, and they're very, very good at doing sales, and they've noticed that they work very well with our technological platform. So the idea is, hey guys, why don't we go out together, creating a package that makes it basically a no-brainer proposition for publishers to jump on board the podcasting wagon. You just create content and collect the check at the end of the month. And that's basically all there is to say about this partnership, where now we have created a turnkey solution for larger publishers to get into this market and start making money from day zero.
And there does seem to be a lot of movement in the industry at the moment, and podcasting is thriving. But what do you think the secret is to accelerating the growth of the podcasting industry, getting more people involved? And what role do you see yourselves playing in this?
So, first of all, I'm a firm believer that one of the biggest hurdles in podcasting today is technology hurdle. For example, if you look at the countries in the world where podcasting is more developed, you can also see that these countries are the one where iOS and Apple ecosystem have the highest market share. And the reason is very simple. Apple has a podcasting app pre-installed front and center on their mobile phones. People here in the US, most of the people still believe that the big unlocking moment for podcasting growth back in 2014 was the publishing of Serial as a podcast. Well, I actually believe that was a consequence of a revolution that had started 2 months prior, which was the release of iOS 8, which was the first version of iOS with the podcast app front and center. And the only reason why Serial was able to take off like that was because people already had access to a simple way to discover podcasts. However, on Android, and unfortunately for our market, Android has by far the largest market share of smartphone and mobile devices out there. The experience for consuming a podcast is not that easy. In order to consume a podcast, you first need to download an application, and there's multiple applications. Install it, open it, and then search for a show. So it's very unlikely that you bump into a podcast or discover the concept of podcast by chance. This is a problem that needs solving. I always thought that the only company that could solve this problem was Google by releasing a podcasting app. They did. One problem that Google has is that the device manufacturers or the carriers usually heavily customize the phone, hiding the Google original apps into a folder or into some obscure area in the UI because they want to highlight their own apps. And Google's solution to this was very, very smart. They basically built the podcast listening app within their search app. That's actually probably the only app that every single device manufacturer leaves there in the UI, front and center. However, in order to activate it, you still need to actively search for something that contains the word podcast. And again, unfortunately, this is still a hurdle because it doesn't allow serendipity to happen. So the Android problem needs to be solved. And probably at this time, I'm convinced it's not going to be Google to solve this, but maybe companies like Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, they have a chance because they are already installed on a big number of devices. They have a sizable chunk of the population using them. So if they start highlighting podcast content, then more and more people will discover this media and start listening to it. So this is a chance to happen within 2019. On our side, well, our mission is to work on the other side of this marketplace, so work very, very closely to content creators, empowering them to easily distribute on all these existing platforms to basically spark this growth and this thing for happening. So that's what we will focus on in 2019. Our two biggest areas of focus will be making distribution more and more accessible for content creators, and unlocking more and more monetization strategies and tools, again, in order to make this sustainable for content creators.
I completely agree with you there. And as the industry continues to evolve and change, what does the future look like for podcast creators and indeed podcast listeners, in your opinion?
I think the future is bright. We are just seeing the tip of the iceberg here. So what we're seeing is that, again, I tend to disagree with what a lot of people are thinking in the market. Lots of people are thinking that podcasting is actually a new media equals a new genre of content. Originally, the word podcasting started as a technology word. It has now evolved in the mind of individual as a content-specific word. I believe that it's going to go backward to meaning a distribution strategy, because the reason why today we tend to associate podcasts with a very specific, highly produced storytelling-like set of content, as it happens here in the US, is because there was a need, a hunger for this type of content, which was not satisfied by traditional media. But as the market evolves, I just see this becoming more and more audio, spoken word audio. So we'll see more formats, more viable ways to create sustainable business from podcasting. And this is going to be very, very good for content creators and for listeners alike. For listeners, it means more content available, easier to access, more convenient because it's on demand. And for content creators, less man in the middle, less production cost, the ability to profitably target niches of audiences. They are very, very interested in actually experiencing what they can do. So I think the future is bright.
Fantastic. Well, before I let you go, we have covered a lot of ground about what you're thinking about for 2019, but are there any other big goals, or is there anything else that you can share with us today?
Well, my biggest goal for 2019 is to release some key components of what we call VAN, the Voxnest Audience Network. Think of VAN as this big bucket of podcast listeners and podcast consumption that's happening worldwide. We want to enable small businesses and small agencies to basically do direct buys on this podcast inventory, self-service way. Think Facebook ads, Facebook for Business. And this potentially could be a game changer in the podcasting industry because it will allow local buys at very high CPMs, meaning much more money for the content creators, and at the same time delivering great targeting and great ROI for the advertisers. And we're uniquely, as Voxnest, due to the size of the inventory that we manage, we're uniquely positioned to make this happening. So I'm really excited to launch this within 2019 and see how the market reacts.
Well, I am conscious we've covered a lot of ground today. So can you remind the listeners of where they can find you guys online, and also maybe contact a member of your team if they've left with any other questions after listening to our conversation?
Definitely. So again, our website are Voxnest, that's VOXNEST.com. The key platform for people who want to start podcasting and podcast creation, it's named Spreaker. That's like speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. And you can actually find me online on Twitter. My handle is THEBASK, the Basque, or on Instagram, where it's just Basque, BASK.
Well, I'll add those links to the show notes just so people can find you nice and easily. But you've got a fantastic story there. You really have. And I love that little bit that you mentioned early on in the episode about, I think it was May 2010, where everyone said, you don't want to be doing that. Podcasts are finished. And here you are now right in the heart of everything. And it really does, I think it speaks volumes to people listening on in other startup ventures or other careers, just to listen to their heart and follow it through, because anything is possible when you do that. So a big thank you for sharing your inspirational story with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Audio over video seems to be gaining momentum. Maybe it's because it's a cheaper tool for publishers to produce content and grow their audience. While on the other side of the coin, of course, advertisers can understand the effectiveness of their campaigns better than ever before. And like I said at the beginning of the show, with literally thousands and thousands of shows and millions of monthly active users, it's got to make Francesco incredibly proud of what he's created here and actually helping people get their voice heard. And we did cover a lot of ground in this episode, such as going back to 2010 when everyone was telling him that podcasting's dead, it's never going to catch on. And boy, how wrong were those people in that room. And it really highlights to me is if you've got a gut feeling and you're on your own journey, everybody's always going to drag you back and say, you don't want to do that, you want to do things my way. And I'll admit, it is a very fine balance, because you've got to have an element of self-awareness and know when something isn't working and know when to retreat. But equally, you've got to know when to say no to your critics and pile forward and invest everything you can. Because, let's be honest, nobody made their millions or nobody found their way to success by just following what everybody else said. It's a tough call, and I'd love to hear your experiences on that particular topic and, of course, anything we've talked about today. So if you have any points that you would like to add to today's conversation, or even just to ask me a question, remember, email me techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. Now, as we're heading towards the holiday season, I realise that not everybody celebrates Christmas, but if you do and you'd like a seasonal greetings from me, whether it be a video message or a Christmas message or just a Christmas card if you're proper old school, let me know and I'll send something over to you. Does this mean that I'm now going to spend my weekend recording thousands of video messages? Hey, if I do, so be it. Because you guys take the time to tune into this show every day. So the least I can do is give a little bit back. And I do enjoy speaking directly, not only with the guests, but you guys listening too. So as always, a genuine thank you from me for tuning in and listening to the show. And I will be honoured if you will join me again tomorrow, where we'll have another great guest. So thanks for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.